Thank you, Senator Van Hollen. Assistant Secretary O'Brien, one of the things you did early in your career was to help draft the Dayton Peace Agreement. Now, 30 years later, I think the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina is as dangerous as it has been at any time since that agreement was signed. And one of the big reasons for that is that Republic of Srpska President Milorad Dodik continues to refuse to support a unified government in the country, continues to talk about seceding with the Republic from the rest of Bosnia-Herzegovina, continues to deny the genocide in Srebrenica, and not much seems to be happening to him as the result of all of those efforts and antics. So can you talk about what we're trying to do to hold him accountable?
Thank you, and thank you for your consistent support of Bosnia and Herzegovina over the years. In general, in the Western Balkans, the last 2 years, there's a real opportunity that was never there in the time since Dayton. It's an opportunity to join at least the single market of the EU, but also have real progress toward accession. So I hope that we're able to see that our 3 NATO members in the region, starting with Montenegro and Albania, make real progress. So that will change the political situation in the region considerably. In Bosnia, a difficulty is that Dayton was really a ceasefire among 3 factions, each one at the time dominated as a kind of ethno-nationalist group. And we see Mr. Dodik has decided that's a good model for him. He doesn't want to be part of the single market or have more of the rule of law. Where I disagree with you is that nothing's been done to him. So he's largely isolated. He doesn't have political support when he talks about secession. Croatia openly says it won't recognize, and that's one neighbor gone. And quietly, Serbia says, no, we're not changing these borders. We stick by original Dayton. And you've seen now President Vučić begin to say something like that publicly. So Dodik is alone. And if you just listen to him in his most recent press conference today, the sanctions are battering his finances. And so he has less and less money. What he's forced to do, because he refuses to engage through the central government mechanisms that should be part of paying for governance, he goes and tries to borrow money from China, from Russia, from Hungary, and occasionally from Serbia. And that is becoming more and more difficult for him. He used to be able to get favored banks to run government bonds, and that, he complained today, is shut off to him because of our sanctions. So all of this has to come together in a political strategy then that says Bosnia and Herzegovina has the chance to move forward if they adopt the reforms that the EU is asking for the single market. They just missed their deadline last week because a different one of the groups sought a little extra advantage and wouldn't sign off on the package. But President Dodik is feeling a lot of pressure, and I think we can work using our sanctions, using the bond powers, and using the pressure of this EU accession to begin to change the political incentives. Right now, it rewards him the more outrageous he is. He has to be rewarded the more he delivers for his citizens.
Well, I appreciate that. I think anything that we can do to encourage him to behave in a way that's more helpful to the central government and the people of the country would be positive. You talk about EU accession. Senator Ricketts and I and some other senators during the NATO summit had a chance to meet with the prime ministers of Albania, Montenegro, and the foreign minister from North Macedonia. Maybe it was the prime minister of North Macedonia and the foreign minister of Montenegro. And what we heard from them was some real frustration with the EU accession process, feeling like the boundary keeps moving in terms of what they're being asked to do, particularly with respect to North Macedonia. So can you talk about what more we can do to encourage the Europeans to actually make good on the promise to help once some of the Western Balkan countries have done the reforms that were asked them to stop moving the goalposts and actually allow the accession to move forward?
Yeah, and thank you for having that meeting. It was important to the countries. Yeah, this is a bit of a problem. So the first, it's a daily challenge to be a friend of the process while often not being part of the process. But it means encouraging countries to make painful reforms, political factions within countries not to make outrageous demands that would derail the progress forward. It also means suggesting alternative paths. So one thing I worked on in and out of government was an effort to bring countries into a common regional market, but also into the single market ahead of full accession. Because with accession, it's the sitting at the EU Council table that's so problematic, whereas the economic side can come much earlier. And that now is the EU's policy with the growth plan. So that's an American effort that we support, or American encouraged idea that we fully support, and it brings reforms and benefits early. And then in the accession process, there are two kinds of problems. There's actually delivering the reforms that are required, and then there are good neighborly relations. So North Macedonia has suffered because of disagreements with its neighbors, which does change the requirements for it constantly. And part of our work diplomatically is to prepare a path so that it maintains the agreement it has with Greece. And I think your meeting and others have helped keep that there so that Greece becomes a friend of North Macedonia's path forward rather than a critic. Same with Albania. But also the main issue is an agreement North Macedonia has with Bulgaria. And once Bulgaria has a more stable government, there will have to be discussions about the exact way that gets implemented. So that'll be an area where I expect us to be very active as well.
Thank you. Senator Ricketts.